Today, on Callout, Pemberton and Whistler search and rescue race against time to find a lost snowmobiler.
For every day that passes, the likelihood of a positive outcome goes down by about 50%.
And later, surviving an avalanche.
I was struck by this avalanche like a semi-truck on the highway. It's just like being in a raging river.
Sunday, 6:45 a.m. Pemberton search and rescue volunteers are busy prepping gear and loading snowmobiles for what promises to be a very challenging mission. The night before, a call came in reporting a missing snowmobiler. 33-year-old Carl Mulheron had become separated from his friends Saturday afternoon and was last seen on the Pemberton ice cap in an area called Top of the World.
So go ahead with that task number, please.
The weather that night was absolutely horrible. It was snowing, it was blowing, it was cold. It wasn't a night to go and try and search the ice cap, and it was no night for a guy to be out by himself.
Yeah, hi, Kevin. It's
Dave contacts his team for an early start the next morning. Then, he goes over the search plan with the local RCMP who took the initial call.
The first area that we really needed to get into is the area where he separated from his friends, and then the second area was actually an area below that on the glacier.
A search team, loaded with gear, boards a helicopter brought in from nearby Whistler. They're going in to assess snow conditions on the ice cap, and with any luck, spot the missing subject.
It is the literal needle in a white haystack. It is massive. It's mile upon mile of just endless ice fields. And you're looking for somebody that, if you're lucky, sitting on top of the snow or possibly fallen into a crevasse.
Crevasse, easily seen from the air, can be invisible at ground level, with just a thin snow bridge separating the rider from an icy plunge hundreds of meters down. The snowmobile team heads out from the Pemberton SAR base. Weather and snow conditions permitting, they'll travel the same route as the missing subject.
They couldn't see 5 feet in front of them, and you can't ride a skidoo on a glacier if you can't see more than 5 feet.
The helicopters are not having much luck either.
Two of the highest probability areas were in this band of fog. We could get to it, we could access it, and have a good look around it.
But they could not actually see the ground below.
Well, we can't really sneak down too much farther there.
Stalled by weather at the edge of the ice cap, the search focuses on the 3 drainages below.
We attempted, and in some cases were successful in inserting search teams in the lower drainages that came out of that area that he could conceivably have made his way to.
By now, Carl had been stranded on the mountain for almost 30 hours. His chances of survival had diminished significantly.
For every day that passes, the likelihood of a positive outcome goes down by about 50%. We kept waiting and hoping that we'd get a window that would allow us to get up there and actually take a look. That, unfortunately, didn't happen that day.
It is now Monday morning. Nearby Whistler Search and Rescue has been called in for mutual aid on this mission.
We're just here at the heliport here in Whistler. We've got an RCMP chopper that's come to give us a ride.
Each member is equipped with a 24-hour pack that contains everything needed to survive for at least one day on the glacier, should the helicopter be unable to pick them up due to bad weather.
Pemberton SAR base from John in Air 5.
There are now 2 helicopters, as well as several snowmobile and ground teams looking for the missing subject. Back at Pemberton Base, Brad Sills of Whistler Search and Rescue has now arrived and will be sharing search manager duties with Dave Steers.
By the time you get into the 3rd operational phase on a search, people start getting tired, and it's always good to bring some new resources in. They see things different, and that's why we like to move search management around.
The SAR managers pore over the maps, the dark blue outlining the huge mass of ice and snow. They can't wait for the weather any longer and decide to insert highly skilled alpine skiers right on the glacier to carefully search the fogged-in, high-probability areas.
Our ground teams managed to get access up onto the glacier, but they couldn't really initially travel into the search area all that easily, again, because of weather.
The news only gets worse.
Go around the other way.
Yet again, a helicopter is turned around because of weather. However, almost immediately, some other news comes in.
I got a call from Russell, who was in the other helicopter, saying that he'd located the fellow. That was a really nice moment.
The weather had finally cleared enough that we could actually get in, and there was our Mr. Mulheron standing beside his snowmobile, waving both arms, quite happy to see us.
The rescued subject is brought back to base. Carl is in surprisingly good shape after enduring more than 2 days of snowstorms on a glacier.
I got separated and I was trying to backtrack, and I think I ended up going the wrong direction. Right?
For Carl, what had begun as an afternoon on the mountain became the challenge of a lifetime.
You can see, like, even being on the ground, I couldn't see the crevices on either side of me.
Yeah, no, you made it good.
Our idea was to go to Pemberton Icefield for a nice, easy afternoon. It was coming around after 5 when we said, let's start making our way back to the truck. Weather was starting to sock in, so it was starting to get real soupy.
They lost track of each other in the fog and snow. While Carl drove around looking for his friends made it out, expecting to see him at the trucks. He wasn't there, and they reported him missing. By then, Carl's daylight was running out.
Driving up and down, trying to find your way out, gets more disheartening with every moments that go by, because I'm trying to watch my fuel. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not going to hurt myself when I fall into a crevice. And then I have the weather and the night fighting against me.
Carl has also realized that his Avalanche beacon and GPS are sitting in his truck.
Obviously, I would have loved to have them.
Carl makes 2 smart decisions that likely saved his life. One, he decided he was lost.
It starts to turn your gut a little, be like, wow, I'm lost. It's also the hardest decision to make, to say you're lost when you have a snowmobile that can take you 5-10 kilometers in 15 minutes and 20 or 30 liters of fuel left. So I knew I had enough fuel to get out if I was going in the right direction. If I was going in the wrong direction, I could have ended up getting stuck somewhere more drastically dangerous than where I stopped.
The second smart thing Carl did was to prepare a shelter before it got dark and stay put.
I knew how to make a snow cave from winter camping and experiences with scouts. It was the next days that I was worried to be more than the one night. But what I tried to do was focus on things that could help me to survive this. And panic is probably one of the worst things you could do when you're lost and in a situation where it's really do or die.
Carl settles in for a long, cold night.
I knew I should just try to go to sleep. I used the side panel of my snowmobile as a roof and squatted in a hole all night. I said a few Hail Marys.
The next day, the situation with the weather was only worse.
When I woke up, I knew that I was going to be spending the day and probably that night on the mountain again, just because of the visibility factor. I could hear helicopters coming by my area on and off. So it gave me hope that there was somebody actually looking for me.
Carl's sled could no longer start. He's been using the heat from his snowmobile engine and hand grips to help keep warm during the day.
Kind of almost be sitting on the motor just to try to get the heat off it.
Come nightfall, the weather got colder.
Sunday night, it got really cold. It was going to be a lot rougher than Saturday night. And my feet were wet at this point.
Carl rips the sleeves off his sweatshirt to use them as socks to ward off frostbite on his feet.
I'm sure it was like midnight and 2 o'clock in the morning. I had to climb out of the cave and get out and walk around and try to stay warm that way. The night had been so clear and cold that it kind of gave me hope that Monday morning it would have been clear and blue skies. But it wasn't. It was really socked in again. That's when my spirits were a little bit low.
He still had a sandwich, some granola bars, and water, which he rationed out carefully.
Mid-morning or late morning, the sun broke So I got a chance to like air out my socks, my boots, my gloves, try to get everything as dry as possible.
Carl is back in his snow cave trying to get some rest when he hears the sweetest sound.
I could hear the helicopter coming, and then I realized it was actually blue skies.
The rescue team sees Carl and goes to land. At the same time, Carl's friends who are also in the area spot the helicopter landing and race over.
So within a matter of like 4 or 5 minutes, I went from being totally alone to having like 8 guys standing around me.
Lucky for Carl and his family and friends, this time it's a happy ending. Rest assured, Carl won't leave his GPS and avalanche beacon behind again, and he's very grateful to Search and Rescue.
It makes you feel good that Search and Rescue is out there volunteering their time, and it's something that you can never, let go, and it's something you always be thankful for.
Now, surviving an avalanche.
It's just like being in a raging river. You get sucked underneath, and there's nothing you can do but just give in to the powers of this force.
December 7th, 1999. A group of friends set off to ski Mount McDonald in the Rogers Pass area of British Columbia. It's a skier's paradise, a gorgeous backcountry setting with some of the driest, most abundant powder in the world. It's also largely untouched by man. If you want to ski it, you have to climb it first. Carefully.
We had all our equipment. We had all the experience. We checked in with the wardens, we checked in with professionals, and we got the green light, the go-ahead to ski the certain area. We were all experienced backcountry travelers. This wasn't a rookie crew heading out that morning.
The skiers trek up the mountain, equipment on their backs and their eyes on the snow.
It's a brutal climb. Every step you have to work for. Snow quality constantly changes as you're hiking up the mountain, and it's something that you have to pay close attention to.
Suddenly, there's a muffled crack. Before they can get out of the way, the group is swept up in an enormous avalanche.
I was struck by this avalanche like a semi-truck on the highway. It hit me so hard that it winded me. It's just like being in a raging river. You get sucked underneath, and there's nothing you can do but just give in to the powers of this force.
The avalanche was 1,000 meters wide, over 9 football fields across.
I couldn't breathe the whole time. I was choking and choking and choking, and the sounds that I was hearing were just like thunder constantly in my ears. So the avalanche started to slow down, and the snow started thickening up like cement. And there I was with my head sticking out, and I was looking right back at the mountain.
When it comes to avalanches, you can do all the right things and still run into trouble.
Really strong plume coming out of the Western Pacific.
Forecasting avalanches is a tricky business. At the Canadian Avalanche Centre in Revelstoke, British Columbia, avalanche forecasters gather and analyze data from all over BC.
We look at what conditions were yesterday, we update with what happened last night, and then we start looking into the future. Just a little flurry overnight. A lot of what we do is try and manage uncertainty. I guarantee it.
They assemble weather information as well as snowpack reports, which are collected from people who go into these dangerous areas to test the conditions.
Our data comes from the heli ski companies, the snowcat ski companies, the ski area, the people who are responsible for keeping the highways safe. Those are the people who are out in the field collecting the data.
People like avalanche technician Scott Aitken.
I'm a snow avalanche technician for the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and I forecast avalanches and do avalanche control for sites that affect the highway, in this case, Highway 99 through the Duffy Lake area.
Scott's area, Duffy Lake, is in between Whistler Mountain and Lillooet off of Highway 99. The area, with its 45-degree inclines and plenty of precipitation, is a hotbed of avalanche activity. There are regular patrols like Scott's in all avalanche-prone areas of BC, where slides threaten to block highways and create a danger to the traveling public or to those who use the area for backcountry adventure. This is a typical day for Scott and his colleague Erica Flavel. They unload snowmobiles at the edge of the highway in preparation for their trip up the mountain to test avalanche conditions. On the other side of the lake from where they're unloading, evidence of avalanche is everywhere. They travel the snow-covered logging road switchbacks up the steep mountainside. Eventually, the trail is reduced to an intricate snowmobile path through trees and bush. Depending on the conditions, the weight, power, and even the noise of snowmobiles can trigger an avalanche. They'll only go as far as they safely can before switching to touring skis. As they traverse the slope, they keep a close eye on the changing snow conditions. At the avalanche test site, a pit is dug to reveal the layers in the snow. The shovel test assesses the stability of the snowpack. They compress the snow to identify weak layers, then analyze the snow at the breaking point. Avalanches occur when a weak layer gives way, allowing the snowpack to slide. If avalanche conditions exist and threaten roads, the technicians move from snowpack analysis to avalanche control. How do you control an avalanche? You set one off. It's a preemptive strike.
Our goal with avalanche control is to trigger small avalanches while the road's closed before conditions build up to a point where there's a large avalanche that can affect the highway.
Dropping explosives out of helicopters is a great way to target avalanche paths, but this can't be done at night or during snowstorms. An alternative method is required, especially for volatile mountains requiring immediate attention.
Up behind me is my nemesis, Path 51.0, or Duffy Lake number 2. Probably 25% historically of the avalanches that affect this highway come from this site.
Path 51.0 has remote sensors that notify Scott by phone of snowfall and wind conditions. It also has a Gazex, a steel tube that ignites an explosive mixture of propane and oxygen to set off a slide. Scott can activate it remotely from his laptop.
The freezing level is 500 meters above terrace?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Okay.
At the Canadian Avalanche Center, the data used to determine avalanche threat to highways is also used to help create avalanche bulletins for the general public.
We take that data, we evaluate it, we provide forecasts for the recreational public to help them make better decisions. We're trying to help them identify sort of what the level of hazard is, where the problem is, and what to do about it.
Even with all the information, forecasters can only assess conditions and calculate danger ratings. They can't always predict avalanches.
Forecasting avalanches is not a science, and even though our forecasters do a tremendous job, conditions can change within the hour, sometimes within the minute. It's still very much up to the individual to make good decisions once they're in their backcountry. We're all avid backcountry users. We love being in the mountains, and we absolutely always encourage people to use the backcountry, but it's so vital to be educated. You need to get trained with a course, you need to have the right equipment, and always check the bulletin. Mother Nature is impossible to predict with absolute certainty.
In the backcountry, Francois's group had made all the right decisions. They still got caught in a devastating avalanche.
I had my head above the snow and one hand, and slowly, as I dug myself out, I had my whole arm. And so once that was out, I could dig away at my body, and I was able to uncover the snow that was in front of me.
In an amazing stroke of luck, rescuers were already on scene.
There were 12 eager students that were doing an avalanche course at the base of the mountain that morning, that when the avalanche struck, they ran into the forest and hid from it, and then raced up and saved us all. My great friend, Scott Newsom, who was one of the rescuers, was looking right into my face, and he didn't recognize me at all. He didn't know who I was because my face was so chewed up and so destroyed.
The injured skiers were airlifted out. One of them, Shane Block, didn't survive.
Everybody in the group had serious injuries, and everybody was taken to the hospital.
Francois was lucky to be alive.
Here we are 10 years later, and my body is, healed pretty much. I'm still about 80% of what I used to be. And we're in the mountains every single day. It's our passion and it's our drive and it's what keeps us going. The mountains are so beautiful and they're so fun, and you go there for pleasure and passion. You forget that there's death and injury and pain and struggle that's involved with daily mountain life. And so it's important to see that aspect, to balance everything out.
Balance. The right balance of information, experience, equipment, and in some cases, luck. Callout Search and Rescue features real stories filmed live by search and rescue teams during actual missions. Find out more at calloutsar.tv.